The roar of engines filled the parking lot, a deep thunder that made people turn their heads. Leather jackets, heavy boots, faces carved by years of hard roads and harder lessons. Most folks didn't see protectors when they saw bikers. They saw danger. Danger. They judged from a distance, from rumors, from fear. And then a little girl came running. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8. Her shoes were torn, her hair messy, her face soaked with tears and dust. She ran straight toward the men everyone else avoided. Her small legs trembled as she pushed through the circle of motorcycles, her voice cracking as she screamed words that stopped every engine, every laugh, every movement. They're beating my mama! Silence felt like a heavy blanket. No music, no engines, no jokes. Just that cry hanging in the air. The little girl collapsed near one of the bikes, shaking, pointing back toward a rundown apartment building across the street. Her fear was raw, real, and desperate. The kind of fear that doesn't know stereotypes, doesn't care about reputations, and doesn't ask whether help looks safe or scary. She ran to the only people she saw who looked strong enough to stop what was happening. One of the bikers knelt down so he wouldn't tower over her. His voice was calm, steady, nothing like the image people had in their heads. He asked her where her mother was. She pointed again, crying harder now that someone was listening. That's when the jackets moved, not with rage, not with chaos, but with purpose. Engines stayed off. Fists stayed clenched at their sides. They crossed the street together, boots hitting pavement in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Some pulled out phones. Others froze, unsure whether to be afraid or relieved. Inside that apartment, a woman was cornered, bruised, terrified, trying to shield herself. The moment the door opened and she saw who had come, she covered her face, expecting the worst. But it didn't come. What came instead was an end. The violence stopped. Voices that had been loud moments before went quiet. Authority didn't need to shout. Strength didn't need to swing wildly. Sometimes just standing firm is enough to say, "This ends now." The bikers didn't cheer. They didn't pose. They didn't wait for applause. When it was over, they made sure the woman and her daughter were safe. They stayed until real help arrived. Then they walked back to their bikes. No speeches, no bragging, just silence. The kind of silence that forces people to rethink what they think they know. That day, a little girl learned that help can come from unexpected places. A mother learned she wasn't alone. And everyone watching learned a hard truth. Goodness doesn't always wear the clothes you expect, and courage doesn't always look polite. Sometimes heroes don't arrive quietly. And sometimes heroes don't arrive quietly. Sometimes they ride in loud and leave without saying a word. People think they understand strength. They think it has a look, a uniform, a reputation that walks into a room before the person does. They decide who is dangerous and who is decent based on clothes, faces, tattoos, accents, or silence. Long before a word is spoken, judgments are made. Walls go up, and in those moments, the truth about a person is buried under assumptions that feel comfortable but are often wrong. Strength is not what most people think it is. It is not intimidation. It is not the ability to scare others into obedience. Real strength doesn't announce itself or demand respect. It reveals itself quietly, often when no one expects it, in moments where doing the right thing costs something. That is where character shows up, not in how someone looks on an ordinary day, but in how they respond when another human being is in pain. When people judge by appearance, they limit their understanding of the world. They miss the complexity of human lives. A leather jacket becomes a threat instead of a layer against the cold. A rough voice becomes cruelty instead of exhaustion. Silence becomes guilt instead of restraint. Society teaches these shortcuts early, and they stick because they feel safe. It feels easier to label than to learn, easier to fear than to understand. But those shortcuts have consequences. They decide who gets help and who is ignored. They decide who is trusted and who is avoided. Sometimes they decide who survives. The truth is that strength is not polished. It is forged. It comes from hardship, from loss, from mistakes faced and lessons learned the hard way. Many of the strongest people you will ever meet carry scars, some visible, many hidden. They know pain not because they caused it, but because they lived through it. And that experience often gives them something rare, empathy with teeth. The kind of empathy that doesn't just feel bad for someone, but steps forward when others step back. Judging strength by appearance also blinds people to their own responsibility. When someone assumes that that's not my problem because the situation looks messy or uncomfortable, they excuse themselves from action. They wait for help that looks official, clean, and familiar. But help does not always arrive in neat packaging. Sometimes it arrives wearing the wrong clothes, speaking the wrong language, or coming from people society has already decided not to trust. And when people reject that help because it doesn't match their expectations, they reveal more about their prejudice than about reality. Real strength shows itself in restraint, in choosing protection over power, in standing between harm and the helpless without asking for credit. Anyone can raise a fist, anyone can shout, but it takes discipline to remain controlled when emotions are high. It takes courage to intervene not for praise, not for recognition, but because someone else needs it. That kind of strength does not care who is watching. It cares only about what is right. There is a quiet lesson here that challenges everyone. If we are wrong about who is strong, what else are we wrong about? How many people have we misjudged? How many chances for kindness have we missed because we trusted stereotypes more than humanity? When people learn to look past appearances, they begin to see actions clearly. They stop asking who someone is supposed to be and start watching who they actually are. Strength is revealed in moments of choice, when walking away would be easier, when helping would complicate life, when silence would be safer. In those moments, appearance means nothing, titles mean nothing, reputation means nothing. Only action matters. Only character speaks. And once someone truly understands this, they can never see the world the same way again. They become slower to judge and quicker to listen. They become less impressed by image and more moved by integrity. They learn that the strongest people in the room are often the ones who don't look like heroes at all, but choose to act like them anyway. True power has been misunderstood for a long time. Many people confuse it with dominance, fear, and control. They think power means being louder than everyone else, stronger than everyone else, or more aggressive than everyone else. They believe the person who can intimidate a room, silence others, or force obedience must be powerful. But that belief is shallow, and in real life, it often causes more harm than protection. Real power does not terrorize. Real power protects. Terror is easy. It relies on fear, unpredictability, and force. Anyone can make another person afraid if they are willing to cross moral lines. Terror demands submission, not respect. It leaves scars, trauma, and silence behind. People may obey terror, but they never feel safe around it. They shrink themselves to survive it. That is not strength. That is weakness disguised as control. Protection, on the other hand, requires discipline. It requires awareness, restraint, and responsibility. A protector understands that their strength exists for a reason beyond themselves. They know that power is not something to prove, but something to manage. Protectors step in not to dominate, but to stop harm. They create space for the vulnerable to breathe, to stand, and to be safe. That kind of power does not feed on fear, it removes it. The strongest people are often those who could cause the most damage, but choose not to. They know their capability, yet they keep it under control. That self-control is what separates terror from protection. When emotions are high, when adrenaline surges, when anger feels justified, restraint becomes the true test of power. Anyone can lose control. Only the strong can hold it. Protection also means accountability. A person who truly holds power understands the weight of their actions. They know that stepping in changes lives, and stepping out can cost lives. That awareness creates humility. It prevents recklessness. Protectors do not act for applause or recognition. They act because allowing harm to continue would be a failure of character. There is also courage and protection that terror never requires. Terror relies on fear of consequences. Protection often risks them. Standing up for someone else can bring danger, criticism, or misunderstanding. It can put a person in the line of fire, physically, emotionally, or socially. Yet protectors step forward anyway. They accept the risk because someone else is already suffering. That willingness to risk comfort for justice is real power. Protection sends a message that is stronger than any threat. You are not alone. That message can change everything. For someone who is being harmed, ignored, or silenced, knowing that another human being is willing to stand beside them restores dignity. It reminds them that they matter. Terror strips dignity away. Protection gives it back. Society often celebrates the wrong kind of power. Movies glorify destruction. Stories praise domination, but in real life, the people who make the biggest difference are not those who frighten others into submission. They are the ones who show up when things get ugly, who stay calm in chaos, and who put themselves between danger and the defenseless and loyal. They do not need to announce themselves. Their actions speak clearly enough. When true power is present, violence decreases instead of escalating. Fear dissolves instead of spreading. Order is restored not through threats, but through presence. That is the paradox of real strength. It brings peace, not panic. Understanding this changes how a person lives. They stop trying to look powerful and start trying to be useful. They measure strength not by how many people fear them, by how many people feel safe around them. And that is the highest form of power there is. Power that protects, power that restores, and power that leaves the world quieter, safer, and better than it found it. Life has a way of teaching us that help does not always come from where we expect it. From a young age, people are taught to associate safety with certain roles, uniforms, or appearances. We are conditioned to believe that help looks official, polite, and familiar. We expect it to come from people who fit neatly into society's approved image of goodness. But reality does not follow those rules. Desperation strips away prejudice, need silences judgment. In those moments, the heart reaches for strength, not stereotypes. That is why unexpected help can be so powerful. It exposes how fragile and inaccurate our assumptions really are. Many people miss help because they are too busy evaluating it. They ask questions like, do they look right? Do they sound right? Are they someone I was taught to trust? While those questions are being asked, suffering continues. Real compassion does not wait for approval. It responds. And often the people who respond first are those who understand pain because they have lived it themselves. Unexpected helpers are often people society has misunderstood, ignored, or pushed to the margins. They know what it feels like to be judged unfairly, to be dismissed before being known. That experience can create a deep sense of empathy. When they see someone else hurting, they don't analyze it from a distance. They recognize it. Pain speaks a universal language, and those who have learned it fluently are often the quickest to answer its call. There is also something humbling about receiving help from an unexpected source. It forces a person to confront their own biases. It asks uncomfortable questions. Why did I assume they wouldn't care? Why did I think kindness belonged to only one kind of person? Those moments can change how someone sees the world forever. They break mental walls that were built without evidence and maintained by fear. Unexpected help reminds us that goodness is not owned by any group. Compassion is not limited by appearance, background, or reputation. It shows up wherever someone chooses to act with humanity. When people understand this, they stop categorizing others so quickly. They become more open, more observant, and more willing to see character instead of caricatures. There is also a lesson in courage. Here, offering help when no one expects it requires bravery. It means stepping into a situation where you might be misunderstood, judged, or even blamed. It means acting without the protection of praise or social approval. Many unexpected helpers act not because it will make them look good, but because it would feel wrong not to act. That moral clarity is rare, and it is powerful. For the person receiving that help, the impact can be life-changing. When someone who least expected kindness receives it, hope returns. Trust, even if broken before, begins to rebuild. They realize that the world is not as cruel or simple as they once believed. One unexpected act of protection can rewrite a lifetime of fear. This truth also carries responsibility. If help can come from unexpected places, then anyone can choose to be that help. No one is disqualified by how they look, where they come from, or how others label them. The decision to act with compassion is always available, and sometimes the most meaningful help comes from those who know what it means to be overlooked. When people stop limiting where help is supposed to come from, they become more receptive to humanity itself. They listen more, they judge less. They recognize that in moments of crisis, what matters is not who someone is supposed to be, but who they choose to be in that moment. In the end, unexpected help teaches a simple but powerful truth. The world is fuller of potential goodness than we think. And sometimes the hands that save us are the ones we never thought would reach out at all.